First, I want to hear from our wider audience. Can I ask you, do boys have it easier than girls now? Or is it more difficult to be a boy? Have we got anyone who has a view on that? Anyone wants to come in on that? Yes, yourself.
I would say that it's...
Just down here, sorry, down here in the front.
I would say it's not easier on either side, but I would say that it's being driven to extremes for both, like for all genders. I do think that like when you're engaging in social media, it takes your data, it brings you to a certain funnel, and it basically shows the extremes of like opinions on either side, and really like feeds off your interaction with that to like, again, further like it's advertisements, it's video time, etc. So I wouldn't say it's easier on either side, but making an extreme between like boys and girls makes it more difficult for them to connect in the future. So I do think it ends up being more difficult for everyone in the long run.
Yeah, so it's difficult for everyone, yeah. Up here in the back, yeah.
I do believe it's difficult for both boys and girls growing up but they do have differences. It's different for each. And I do believe the sphere for boys growing up is a bit more simple or a bit more easy to understand and inherit than what girls have to go through growing up.
Okay, have we got any boys? Yeah, yourself. Or men.
Men, yeah. I think nowadays what we're seeing in social media is just another manifestation of the struggle that there really is between boys and girls growing up, not just in the younger years, but you know, as people grow up through society too, and how we as a society kind of combat and kind of try and challenge that inequality is big questions that we need to face, and you know, this Netflix show kind of brings them to the fore. Yeah.
Did yourself? Do you have your hand up there? Yeah.
I would say, first of all, I mean, the programme was absolutely like mind-blowing. You know, it literally broke my heart watching it. I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen it yet, but at the same time, I kind of, all the issues that were brought up in it are things we all kind of know about. They're kind of circling in our ecosystems for probably months and maybe even years. And I think there's no other way of putting this. Our children, our boys and our girls are really, really suffering in ways that they don't even understand yet. And it may well be that apart from the short-term problems they suffer from, there's a huge number of children will suffer from long-term damage. And we won't see that until they are part of society in 10, 15 years' time. And who knows what damage will have been done by then and what impact that will actually have on society in general.
Okay, that's a sobering thought and a sobering note. Thank you for that. And on that note, I want to go to our young people now because, as I say, we have a group of students here tonight. They're from Doon-on-Ree School in secondary school in Cavan. And we asked you all to watch Adolescence for us, and I wanted to get your take on it. I'm going to bring in Aaron here in the front first. What did you make of it, Aaron?
I thought it was really good at portraying what it's like. And it kind of shows the two sides as well, because I thought the likes of Adam were a lot more relevant in the show in the way that he's exposed to it too, but kind of grins it and bears it. And it also shows Jamie, which is kind of pushed to the extreme in what could happen.
Did it ring true for you? Do you recognise that world?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, there's definitely people out there who would really relate to both of them.
Okay, I was hoping you'd say, no, that's an exaggerated world. Emily, can I ask you, from a girl's perspective, do you recognise that world?
Yeah, I think in today's world it's like completely relevant, and Jamie's a character that most people watching the show shouldn't feel they should relate to, but obviously the heinous crime that was committed is something completely unfamiliar and a crazy idea to a lot of us, but everything that led him to that point is completely relevant, and he was exposed to social media, and unfortunately it resulted in him being in contact with the wrong people and giving him the wrong ideas, and it's very easy for that to happen, and it's very accessible for young people.
Let's just look at exactly how a character who started off looking like a cherubic young boy. This is just a sense of where that took him.
Look out! I want to sit down! You do not tell me when to sit down! Get down!
Yeah, just a little glimpse into a moment there. He's sitting there with the psychologist in, I think, the 3rd episode. Daniel, can I ask you, are young men feeling isolated now, even though you've never been more connected maybe in terms of social media?
Yeah, I think young men are definitely feeling more isolated than certain women, because it feels like some men don't get the right they don't get the right protection from their parents and from other people. Like for women, they get a lot of protection for themselves, but for men, they're kind of just in their own space, and they can't really get that protection from other people.
You think we're more protective of girls?
Yeah.
We let boys
yeah.
to their own devices.
Yeah.
Do you think that as well, Aaron?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Can I bring in Cadence? Cadence. Do you think boys feel pressured to act in a particular way?
I think they do feel pressured. Some boys on their own are really nice to chat to, but then once they're in that particular group, they completely change and their attitude changes towards women and all. I feel like they feel pressured to do what the other boys are doing, or else they'll feel isolated from the rest of the group.
Yeah, and if I can ask Aoife that, where's Aoife? Yeah, Aoife. Do you think boys are feeling isolated?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the time the focus is on how insecure girls can be growing up. But I think boys are just as insecure in other ways. I think they're so scared of what each other thinks, and they just kind of follow, and they're in groups, and sometimes they're nearly even afraid of being friends with girls, because they're just afraid that other boys will think they like them or something. But really, it's not that deep. But to them, it just can be that deep, and they're so in their heads about it.
Yeah, I see a lot of people nodding their heads on that. Liam, can I ask you, and this is a big question, I suppose, but what does masculinity mean to you? What does it mean to be a man now?
Listen, I think masculinity nowadays is a subjective word. I think it's a very opinionated word, and I think if you ask different people, it'll mean different things. Traditionally, masculinity would mean to supply for your family, go home to your kids, bring dinner to the table. To be strong, not to show emotion. But in my opinion, I think that a man should be allowed to show his emotions, show his feelings, allowed to do what he wants to make him happy, and not have to worry about being a masculine and a stereotypical masculine person.
Do you have to be brave, though, to hold that line?
Sorry?
Would you have to be brave, 14-year-old now, or 15-year-old, to hold that line, to say, I'm going to be soft, I'm going to show my emotions?
I suppose you would, because when you're younger, especially when you're a teenager, you're going through puberty and stuff. I feel that there'd be a lot more confusion and a lot more, you feel like you're expected more.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll bring Amy in on this one. Amy, what do you think being a man is now?
I agree with Liam with that there's a traditional view to it and a more modern view, and traditionally it'd be to be strong and to provide, but now it means anything. And I think one thing that was brought up in the show was the 80-20 thing, that men feel like they need to be of a certain stature to attract
Let me
women.
just explain that to people, because this is in the incel world, which is a lot of this show, which is the involuntary celibate world that they talk about online. There is this idea that 80% of girls or women are attracted to just 20% of men, and that this is the unfair imbalance in this world, and this is what develops a lot of the anger that boys are encouraged to feel against girls and women. So, yeah, you're saying that...
I don't think that's realistic. I think that's something that men will have in their head, but in the real world, when you go out, it's just not true. And I feel like it's just something that men will think that they have to be like that to get women, but they just have to be themselves in reality.
Mairead, where's Mairead? Would you agree with that?
I would absolutely agree. For me, in my opinion, masculinity, in general, people expect men to be less emotional, like Liam said. But for me, to be masculine is to show your emotion, because that's a sign of strength, that you don't care as much what other people think. And we see that a lot in the show, where Jamie feels very isolated, even from his father, and there's not really a strong emotional bond between the two of them. It's very just fixed, and it's not very flexible for Jamie to get the help that he needs, and I find that it's quite difficult for young men to get the help that they need if they're going through mental health issues.
Yeah, and I suppose, and it's fair to say that this was portrayed as a very normal, kind of warm, loving family, and yet that isolation was there. Dara, what do you think about this in terms of masculinity and how boys are feeling?
Well, I believe masculinity is like a very old-fashioned word that is starting to become a bit more dated by the years go by. As when you hear the word masculinity, you think like all manly and like going home, working, and like Liam said, and just like working hard and like show no emotions. But now, like in recent years, and it's probably better like for men to like show some emotion. Like you don't always have to be like the big hard lad in the corner. And like I believe the show like perfectly shows like nearly like toxic masculinity, like how people might like men might become like too toxic and might become a bit misogynist to women and start like treating women with disrespect and everything.
Okay. Can I ask this? And you talked there about misogynistic and that toxic content and all that. There's this idea that there was this parallel universe, really. That was one of the things that came out really strongly from this series. This parallel universe on social media that young people are seeing one thing online and they're saying things to their peers and their friends, and completely different to what the parents are seeing on social media. Maybe Danielle, is that the case? Is there this kind of almost secret world in social media that adults are not privy to?
Yeah, I feel like there is, because like I was allowed access to a phone at 12, and luckily my parents knew the dangers, and they were aware of the content and like the things that can be posted up online. So like they delayed like my time of like getting certain apps as well, like Instagram, because they knew of the dangers that could be posted up. And then just thinking that parents will still allow their children like 12, 11, like even 10-year-olds to have access to social media, like, is just worrying because of any kind of content that can pop up. And I just feel like if parents will allow their children to have access to social media, like, I just feel like they need to educate themselves a bit more on social media.
I think a lot of people who watched Adolescence would be agreeing with you there, Danielle. Thank you all. A really, really interesting insight